The light beyond the horizon. What if the most powerful empire on earth was defeated, not by swords, not by armies, but by faith? What if a slave, beaten and forgotten in the desert, whispered words that would one day shake Rome? What if history's greatest transformation began not in a palace, but in a cave? This is not just a story of battles. It is a story of hearts, of conviction, of mercy in an age of cruelty, and of a light that crossed oceans, reaching even the shores of what we now call America. Chapter 1. The night the desert held its breath. The desert outside Mecca was unusually still. No wind, no wandering caravans, no tribal drums echoing across the dunes. Inside the Cave of Hira, a man stood trembling. His name was Muhammad ibn Abdullah. He was not a king, not a warrior, not wealthy. He was known simply as El-Amin, the trustworthy. He had climbed this mountain seeking silence, seeking answers, seeking truth in a society drowning in injustice. 7th century Arabia was a place of tribal pride and moral contradiction. Poets were celebrities. Loyalty to tribe was sacred, but so was revenge. Female infants were buried alive out of shame. Slavery was common. The powerful exploited the weak. Wealth determined worth. And yet, in that cave, something happened that would permanently alter human history. A presence filled the darkness. Read. Muhammad could not read. Read. The command came again. He felt himself pressed, not by force of violence, but by the weight of something greater than the desert, greater than the sky itself. Read in the name of your Lord who created. The first revelation descended. Not a political manifesto, not a military order, but a call to knowledge. The beginning of a revolution. When Muhammad descended from the mountain, he was shaken. His wife, Khadija, wrapped him in a cloak as he trembled. "I fear for myself," he said. But she did not doubt him. "Allah would never disgrace you," she told him. "You keep family ties, you help the poor, you honor guests, you stand for truth." In a world where women had little public voice, it was a woman who first affirmed the Prophet. Khadija believed before anyone else. Then came Ali, a boy. Then Zayd, a former slave. Then Abu Bakr, a respected merchant. The early Muslim community did not begin with elites. It began with the vulnerable. And that is what terrified the powerful. The slave who refused to kneel. Bilal ibn Rabah had no status. He was Ethiopian, dark-skinned, enslaved. In Meccan society, that meant he was property. When he accepted Islam, his master, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, was enraged. Islam preached something dangerous. All humans are equal before God. No tribe superior, no race superior, no bloodline superior. That idea threatened the entire social order. Bilal was dragged into the scorching desert. A massive stone was placed on his chest. Under the blazing Arabian sun, he was tortured. "Renounce Muhammad," they demanded. Bilal had nothing, no protection, no tribe powerful enough to defend him. But he had something stronger. He whispered one word. Ahad. One. One God. They beat him. Ahad. They crushed him under the stone. Ahad. That whisper would echo across centuries. Persecution and patience. The Quraysh mocked the Prophet. They called him a poet, a magician, a madman. They offered him wealth. "If you want money, "We will make you the richest among us." They offered him power. "If you want leadership, we will make you our king." He refused. "If they placed the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, I would not abandon this message." Islam was not about power. It was about reforming the human heart. And reform always threatens corruption. Migration, a turning point. 13 years of persecution passed. Then came a defining moment: migration. The Prophet and his followers left Mecca for Yathrib, later known as Medina. This was not escape, it was strategy. In Medina, something unprecedented happened in world history: a pluralistic constitution. Muslims, Jews, and pagan tribes entered into a mutual defense agreement, what historians now call the Constitution of Medina. Religious freedom was explicitly protected. In 7th century Arabia, that was revolutionary. This was not merely a spiritual movement, it was the birth of a civilization. The battle that changed everything. 2 years later, a small Muslim force of just over 300 men stood facing nearly 1,000 Meccan warriors at the Battle of Badr. Poorly equipped, undersupplied, but united. The Muslims were not fighting for conquest, they were fighting for survival. Against every military expectation, they won. It was not merely a battlefield victory, it was psychological liberation. For the first time, the oppressed realized tyranny is not invincible. Mercy at the peak of power. Years later, when the Prophet returned to Mecca with 10,000 followers, the city expected revenge. After years of torture, exile, war, now he had power. History would predict bloodshed. Instead, he declared, "No blame upon you today." General amnesty. The same people who tortured his companions were forgiven. In a tribal society built on revenge, mercy was radical. A light that traveled west. Centuries later, that same message crossed continents. From Andalusia to West Africa. From West Africa through the Atlantic slave trade. Enslaved Muslims brought fragments of Quran to American soil. Historians today acknowledge that some of the earliest African slaves in America were Muslim. Their names often erased, their faith often hidden, but the whisper remained. Ahad, one. The same word Bilal had spoken.